Yo, what is up guys, and welcome to my F1 25 settings. Let's head straight into it. Assist, obviously I'm not using any assists because they're not allowed in F1 Esports. I'm not sure if something like ABS could make you faster. On some games, even for the pro drivers, ABS was faster, but obviously we're not allowed to use it, so I'm not going to use it. So I've got everything on off. But yeah, if you're new to the game, make sure to try out some assist because it could help you to just actually finish a lap on the game. Time trial settings, again, I usually always keep them off, especially my own Ghost, but rival Ghost could come in handy to see maybe what lines your rival's driving in time trial. Even that sometimes I put myself on in case I want to see some racing lines. So yeah, again, nothing too crazy on that side. Then my camera settings. This is a bit of a different one on this game. I always use TV pod offset, which I basically do just because I get a different FOV. I want to be more zoomed in, you know. That's why I'm also on -20 field of view in the settings. So TV pod offset, but the thing that makes it different is that on some cars, -9 on the offset lateral is not in the middle. So -9 for Red Bull is in the middle, but as you can see, if I put it to -11, the car is not in the middle anymore. And yeah, for some cars you're gonna need -11, for some cars -10, and for some cars -9. So that's why I've put on car specific settings, because the Red Bull is -9, and then maybe if I drive in a My Team car or another car, I'm gonna need -10 or -11. So TV pod offset, -20, -9, 10 on the offset horizontal, offset vertical on 0, angle on -12, mirror angle. I don't really use my mirrors anyway on the F1 game because you can just look back, and I've got a look back button on my wheel, of course, within reach, so I can look back, which is quite important for ERS usage. Camera shake and camera movement and look to apex limit, I would always put them on 0. Now these are on 4, but they're basically on 0 on TV pod offset, so that's why you can change them. But yeah, camera shake, camera movement, and look to apex limit. If you do use the normal TV pod offset or cockpit cam, put it all to 0, because it's distracting, it's not realistic as well, it's just annoying. If you use cockpit cam, I would also turn the halo column off, because it just blocks your view. In real life, your eyes naturally filter out the halo while you sit in the cockpit. You cannot do that on screen. So that's why that option is right there. Onto the on-screen display. I use kilometers per hour, obviously. I'm from the Netherlands, degrees Celsius. Full track map, really important to use full track map so you can kind of plan your outlap nicely. Know when traffic is going to hit you around when. Yeah, it just gives you peace of mind in qualifying. So yeah, delta time on, quite handy to see where you're improving on track or not. Proximity arrows are also quite handy to see, you know, if a car is side by side with you. It's kind of like almost like having a spotter in IndyCar, but then, you know, having it on screen. Driver tags, sometimes I turn these off because on a track like Baku, it can block the braking boards on the side. So they can be distracting. You can turn them off if you want, just to increase your view a little bit. Start lights on. You can turn them off for realism, of course. Virtual rear view mirror, I don't like it. I just use the look back button, as a lot of people have already mentioned. I look back a lot. Yeah, I just don't like having a rear view mirror on my screen. I just want to focus on the road, and then if I want to look behind, I just press the button. Permanent session timer, I actually need to turn it on myself. Again, quite handy to plan your runs in qualifying and know if you can make 3 or 4 runs, for example, in a short quali session or in a Q1. Yeah, just better to plan your runs a little bit. This is for career mode, I don't give a shit about that. On to the calibration settings. Now, steering rate I think is mainly for controllers, Then steering dead zone, never use steering dead zone. Never, ever, never do that. Same for saturation and line linearity. I never use, you could change it if you really want, but I wouldn't do that. Throttle dead zone and brake dead zone. Only use that if in a resting position you've got throttle or brake input. Obviously, if your brake is dragging, even though you're not touching it, put it up. But for example, in the Fanatec control panel, you can also recalibrate so it doesn't drag in there. That's what I do. Brake linearity, that's on 25 by default. I've left it there and I just decided, you know what, I'm just gonna adapt to the 25 because those are the default settings. If I switch to another account or my settings reset, then in the past I've sometimes forgotten to change it, and then I ended up driving a few days with 25, and I was like, well, now I'm gonna have to get used to the other one again. So that's why I've decided to stick with 25. If you always run 0, use 0. If you've been using the default, I would just keep it and just adapt yourself, which you would have naturally done anyway already. So that's why I'm on 25. Not really any deep thoughts behind that, to be honest. Vibration and force feedback on, obviously, so you can feel the car. Then on-track rumble, strip effects, off-track effects, pit stop effects, and wheel damper. I've all put them to 0. I just want this one. This one I change every now and then. This is gonna depend on the wheel you're using. I remember on the Fanatec Seals Elite, the really old Fanatec wheel, on 2020, I used 140, I think so, 150. But yeah, on this wheel, if I go above 65, 70, the wheel starts clipping and I lose feeling of the front tires mid-corner. So yeah, this is gonna be dependent. I would keep everything on 0 and just play around with this one. But yeah, that's my opinion. Wheel rotation, 300 in my wheel and 300 in game. Again, that feels right. You can play around with it. I think anything from like 270 to 360 can work. I think the lowest I've heard an F1 Esports drive is 280 degrees. That will be in the wheel and in the game as well. And the highest around 340. So again, just play around with it a little bit and yeah, just go with what you feel is comfortable. Graphic settings, gamma adjustment. I always leave it on default. I don't care too much about that. Motion blur strength always on 0. Motion blur when you want performance in games like Call of Duty, Counter-Strike, or Formula 1 or iRacing, always motion blur on 0 because this is just distracting. Steering animation, if you're using cockpit cam, you can turn it off. I do sometimes on iRacing turn it off because I'm in cockpit cam and sometimes it blocks your view a little bit. Obviously in real life you're already turning the wheel so you can see how much steering lock you're putting on. But on the F1 game in TV pod cam, I keep the steering animation on. Then onto the graphics. I run ultra low just because of less input delay, more FPS. FPS doesn't matter anymore on the F1 25 game as far as I'm aware. I have tried it a few times changing it, but it seems like the whole FPS, 60 FPS bullshit seems to be finally gone, which is very lovely because now we can finally drive the Formula 1 game on normal FPS. No more bullshit with changing FPS between F1 Esports and the normal game. Yeah, for the people who don't know, on the older F1 games, 23, 22, if you went 60 FPS or 59 FPS, you gain 2/10 relative to someone who's running 200 or 300 FPS. So yeah, luckily that is finally gone. So yeah. Anyway, if you do want to use high graphic settings, let's say on Ultra Max, I would advise turning the ray tracing off. Because whenever I use ray tracing in Formula 1 games, I get an input delay. So yeah, if you want to use high settings, ultra high, on Ultra Max, I don't think, you can turn it off. I would turn all of these off and then leave the rest on ultra high. Now, another thing is if someone has a micro lockup in front of you, you get a huge smoke bomb thrown in front of you, and it makes you barely be able to see the corners, even if they don't fully lock up, even if it's like a slight de-acceleration of a tire, it instantly throws a smoke grenade in front of you. Turn off particles, and then that should be fixed as well. Anyway, I use ultra low, so I don't have that issue. Onto the video mode. Now, personally, I use 1440p. This is just monitor dependent. Of course, if you have a monitor that's 1440p, but your PC is not that strong, you can turn it down to 1080 and then you get more FPS, maybe less lag spikes or screen freezes. So yeah, aspect ratio, I've got it on auto. VSync, very important, turn it off. If you turn it on, it causes input delay. Don't want that. VSync interval, I got that one on 1. Refresh rate as high as possible, of course. FPS limit, actually, it was on because I had some issues with my wheel and someone advised me to turn FPS limit on, but I'm gonna keep that on off. Doesn't matter anymore time-wise if you put it to 60 or not. So we're gonna want as high FPS as possible, of course. Anisotropic filtering on 16x NVIDIA DLSS on the anti-aliasing. Yeah, all of this I don't really change, to be honest. So can play around with this, but I like NVIDIA DLSS the most, and that's what we use in F1 Esports as well. So I just keep it like that. And all of this I've never touched. You can use frame generation. Some people are not a fan of it, some people are a fan of it. I've kept it off for now. I've not tested it as well, to be honest. So onto the audio settings. Again, this is very, very personal dependent, I guess. I got the master volume on 4 because otherwise the game is way too loud. On the onboard mix, I'm on cinematic, and that is because driver just sounds awful. Cinematic is by far superior when it comes down to sound quality, so that's why I'm on cinematic. Tinnitus relief filter, don't need that. Mono mix, want to keep that on off because if you turn it on, you don't hear the difference between left and right, if I say that correctly. Maybe some audio experts can explain it better. Speaker type headphones because we're using headphones. All of this engineer ducking actually needs to be off, but other than that, I have not changed anything on this. Audio simulation quality. Now, if you get like crackling in your headset or crackling in the audio, you can turn this down because if you turn this higher, it might fry your CPU a little bit, and then you get that crackling noise. So that's why I keep it on medium. There's also been years I've run it on ultra low or low. I don't think the quality of sound really changes if you turn this higher. So yeah. Upshift tone, if you need to have one game, so you can use the upshift tones so you know when to upshift. I don't use it. So yeah. Do with it information as you want. Information like parking sensor on. Can turn it off as well, to be honest. Not really important. Radio verbosity. I've got it on responders only. And even then, the in-game engineer still waffles way too much. Comes up with strategies that are useless. It is annoying. In my opinion, responses only should be responses only and not, you know, strategy updates and all that nonsense. Actually, fun fact, because that's the thing, Nicolas Longuet lost an F1 Esports race in Zandvoort F1 23 because of this bullshit. So yeah, if someone from EA is watching this, responses only should be responses only, not still giving strategy nonsense updates and, you know, yeah, that. Then another important thing actually, with my camera settings that I use, if you copy them, it's important to change the OSD, so the HUD. You have to make the top left and the top right parts smaller. The top right is still quite big for me, but yeah. So this one, for example, this one, so the ones that are turning green, top left, you have to make those a lot smaller, otherwise it will block the apexes on some tracks, especially Bahrain is really bad. You know, the downhill left-hander where you lock up the left front really easily. In that corner, you cannot see the apex if you keep that on default settings. So it's important to make the top left smaller. Then on the speedometer, that one, I've moved that one slightly up so I can see my steering wheel, which, yeah, is just a small detail. And yeah, on the top right, I've made that smaller as well. Other than that, I've not changed anything. If you change it, make sure to change it for all sessions. So now I'm on time trial, but as you can see, when I go to layout elimination, that's the default settings I'm on right now. So I still need to make that smaller if I want to drive that elimination mode, because otherwise on Bahrain, I would not be able to see the apex and it really loses you a lot of time. For example, here in the race layout, you can see it's already better. It's still a little bit too big and moved too far down. I think I move that position HUD up and to the left as well, and I make it smaller. So just my view increases because there's so much stuff on the screen already. It's just a bit much sometimes, and it's all quite big. So yeah, make sure to make it smaller. As you see in qualifying, it's still way too big as well. I still have to change that, but the game came out only like 2 days ago. So yeah, so that's where my F1 25 settings. Make sure to like and subscribe for more F1 25 content, and see you guys next time. Ciao.